Alright, so I'm crossing the Missouri River, and I can officially say I am not in Kansas anymore. Wait, what? Okay, so as you could guess by the intro, I am not in South Carolina right now. I am actually in northwest Missouri. This is the area that both of my parents grew up in, which is a little north of Kansas City area. And where we are right now is my aunt's property. And what I wanted to do is, my aunt has had this property for as long as I could ever remember. And she told me that she bought it in '81. So I was like 6 or 7 years old at that time. So yeah, I'm that old. And so every time we would come here, because we lived in Ohio when I was young, is we would come here, and I remembered that my aunt always lived out in the middle of the wilderness, as I thought at that time. And so she and her husband own 2.5 acres out here. And I remember every time that we would come down, I always loved coming out here, and I never knew that this was a like 4 or, trying to think the words here, hold on, foreshadow of things to come for us. So when Andrea and I decided that we wanted to purchase property, the first thing I thought about was this property here. Now obviously we're in South Carolina, they're in Missouri, but other than that, that's what I thought was, I wanted to be out here so I can come out here and do whatever I want to, like she's been able to do as long as I've ever known her. And so what I'm doing here is, a few years ago, they had a koi pond that was over here, and I forget what happened with it, if it was too small or whatever. And because one time I came to visit and the koi pond was over there, then the last time I came to visit and the pond was over here. And if anybody's ever had a koi pond like this before, these things are a labor of love, and they're pretty high on the maintenance side. But as you can see here, the fish are all pretty big, and the water's dark, so the birds won't get to them. But they built this a few years ago, and the pond that we want to get is not, or want to have at some point, is not like a koi pond like this, because we do have birds of prey and they would steal all the fish. So we want to have a pond, mainly at the time for having Sherlock swim in, because that dog loves to swim. And then it's a Cub Cadet Weimar series. So it's like the same thing of like a John Deere small tractor. And so right before the video, I was actually riding around on that thing, because that's like a real tractor, where mine is a garden tractor, which is a glorified lawnmower. But someday. Then they have their garages, they have their old greenhouse, they have a new greenhouse over there. And then I wanted to show back over here, they had their chicken and bird area, and it was around this big tree right here. And she had sent me pictures, and back in the heyday they had like hundreds of birds back here. There was fences and all that. It was like a little aviary area, but they had chickens, they had turkeys, they had I don't know if they had quail, but they had a ton of different type of birds out here. And there's an old building of theirs. And then unfortunately the animals got too much for them, and so they just turned around and just released the birds. They told me yesterday that they had enough turkeys that survived when they went wild, that now there's a decent turkey population around here. So they also had Vietnamese potbelly pigs, and the most famous one was called Rooter, and that pig was just like a big pet, and that pig was just as spoiled as any other animal could be, and he lived a good life. Then but this is basically when I think about where we are and what we want to do. You know, they've been doing this for 35 years or more, but at some point this is basically what we want to do. Just like, okay, we want to build a building over here, we want to have goats with a pen, let's do it. And you can see a little outline right here of like a big rectangle area, and the birds were located in this area. So like you can see the far back side, you can see the side over here with the trees, and then you can see over here in the front. But yeah, so I call my aunt pretty much the genesis of what Andrea and I are trying to do now. Obviously not from Andrea's standpoint, because we didn't get together until a lot later. But Andrea has seen the property out here, and where they are, they're only a few minutes away from the city that they're next to, but it's quiet out here. You have very few neighbors. Everybody just pretty much keeps to themselves, just like we do. So someday, hopefully in the near future, we'll have a greenhouse and stuff. But I figured while I was up here, and I've been coming up here about every day, I wanted to do a video and showcase the property, so then you can be able to see what I'm seeing while I'm up here. So all right, done rambling. Do one more look around the place. And so theirs is 2.5 acres, ours is 9. Now granted, out of our 9 acres, we have 2 acres of wooded, and we have about 5 acres of farm field. And so our, what I call usable property, where we're actually living and stuff, is about 2 acres. So it's about the same size as their property. They'd have their big garden area over here, and they have that big Cub Cadet that do all their tilling and everything. But all right, I am done rambling, but it's just always so beautiful up here. Okay, so I'm back home now, so I can officially say again, I'm not in Kansas anymore. And I was going to do the video earlier, but Andrea said that the chickens had been fairly quiet while I was gone. And then earlier when we came out, they were like the loudest they had ever been, especially Ern, as per usual. So I don't know if they knew it was feeding time and I was back, or what. But anyway, I am glad to be back in South Carolina. I'm glad for the flatness of around here, because the road that my aunt lives on is literally like a roller coaster, and it scared the crap out of me every time I would go through it. And of course, when I would leave her house to go back to the hotel, it was like right at dark. So I'm traversing that road basically at last light. So anyway, fun fact, it might not be today, but it'll definitely be this week. The farmer is harvesting the fields in the area, so our soybeans are going to get harvested. either today or in the next day or so. So glad I was in Missouri and Kansas, but as to quote the Wizard of Oz, there's no place like home.